First up, US President Donald Trump met and greeted the three freed US citizens at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington. The three US citizens were freed by North Korea during Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's visit to Pyongyang yesterday. Pompeo arrived at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington in a medical plane with three freed US citizens. The three citizens were held captive for a long time by Pyongyang. The freed Americans boarded a vehicle and immediately departed after being greeted by US President.
We have a meeting scheduled in a very short period of time. You'll be hearing about it soon. We have the location set, and we will see if we can do something that people did not think was going to happen for many, many years, and a lot of bad things could have happened in between. So I just want to say this is a special night for these three really great people, and congratulations on being in this country.
Joining us live is Harry Horton from Washington, D.C. Harry, what do you make of this significant development coming out from Washington, D.C. this morning? In fact, it's early morning out there in the United States. But what do you make of this significant development? Three U.S. citizens now freed by North Korea. The second time. Last year, it was Wombier who, in fact, didn't survive. But this time again, it's three prisoners more.
Yeah, this is a big moment for Donald Trump in terms of his foreign policy agenda. He's certainly trying to make the most of it. A very grand welcome home ceremony for those three Americans. The President, the First Lady and the Vice President Mike Pence all travelling to that Air Force Base in the middle of the night here in Washington, D.C. I should emphasise, to welcome them home. President Trump clearly trying to capitalise on what he sees as a success of his policy towards North Korea so far, and to try and sell it to the American public in that way, to show them that, look, in his view, he's making very significant progress with North Korea. We heard some remarks from the president there where he spoke for around 7 minutes, and he was incredibly optimistic about what this means now for those talks with North Korea. He thinks it means that North Korea are serious about denuclearization, and he thinks that this is a positive step forward that shows that there could be some sort of positive outcome when the two sides do begin those talks on denuclearization.
Right, and we also saw a tweet put out by Secretary Mike Pompeo, who said that he had productive meetings in Pyongyang and Chairman Kim Jong-un made progress. What meetings and what details of the meetings are those? Do we have any details about that?
Well, we know that Mike Pompeo was in Pyongyang for two reasons. The first reason was to secure the release of these three American prisoners. But the second reason, as you say, was to lay the groundwork for this summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. Now, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, says that the talks he had with Kim Jong-un were positive. He emphasized again that there is now a location, time and date set for this meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. They've finalized all the fine details about that summit. We expect the US to announce the location and the time and the date in the next few days. We know it's not going to be in the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. There is strong speculation here in the United States, and many US media outlets are reporting that location for the summit will be in Singapore. No official confirmation from the White House yet, but certainly we are edging closer to this meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. And from the White House's perspective, they say that signs are very positive and they are increasingly confident about what the outcome of those talks could be.
Well, certainly everyone is expecting certain outcomes of those meetings that are going to be held very soon. But Harry, what can we expect from that meeting apart from things almost going smooth for both the nations here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to know what exactly would be on the table. I mean, from the US point of view, they want to see denuclearization. That is their end goal, and they say that the events of this week, the US pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, they say that that puts them in a strong position, they believe, because they're saying to North Korea, look, what we want here is a real deal with very strict clauses. We want proper, full denuclearization. So they think they've set out their goals to North Korea very clearly. They think the fact that North Korea has chosen to release these prisoners ahead of that summit, that's a very positive step from North Korea. They think that means that they're serious about these talks. And the US, as we heard from President Trump there, the US increasingly optimistic that there could be a positive outcome when the two leaders meet. We think at some point in mid-June is when that summit will take place.
Right, but at the same time, when we've seen 3 US nationals released by North Korea, the US officials have made it abundantly clear that this should not take us away from the main issue of denuclearization. At the end of the day, this is what the two nations need to sit on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the US making very clear that, look, as great as it is and as good a gesture as it is from Kim Jong-un of North Korea that these 3 prisoners have been released, the US policy towards North Korea remains exactly the same. And that is the maximum pressure, maximum sanctions campaign towards North Korea. The White House making clear that until there are some concrete steps from North Korea towards denuclearization, or there is some sort of deal signed by North Korea, then the US policy towards North Korea will not change one bit. One of the points we should make about these prisoners is they do seem to be in pretty good health. They've been held in some pretty difficult conditions in North Korea, held at labour camps in North Korea. They are now going to be undergoing further medical checks now they've landed back in the United States. But it seems from those pictures we saw of them getting off the plane, they're able to walk themselves. So from the US point of view, that's a positive sign that these 3 Americans seem to be in good health.
Right, and these developments between the two nations have seen a dramatic change from the past few months, where there were talks about Guam and then the denuclearization talks which were on the table, and now freeing 3 US citizens again. They seem to have come a long way and finally settling on an issue together.
Yeah, absolutely. We have come a long way. I mean, it was just late last year that the talk was of fire and fury. Donald Trump was calling Kim Jong-un little rocket man. Kim Jong-un firing insults back at President Trump, boasting about the size of each other's nuclear buttons. We seem to be on the brink of nuclear war. And now, just a few months later, you're right, there's huge positive messages between the 2 leaders. So we have come a long way. And for President Trump, he sees that really as a success of his foreign policy, which was that maximum pressure, maximum sanctions campaign, and at the same time increasing the rhetoric towards North Korea. They think that that tactic is what has drawn North Korea to the negotiating table. Now, of course, the US has also been helped by its allies in South Korea and Japan and China as well. But for President Trump, he is taking, or he wants to take a lot of credit for what he sees as a big success of his foreign policy.
Right, Harry, just stay with us. We also have Professor Stopton from the Central Asia. He's a Central Asia specialist. So how do you see these developments? A significant move here by North Korea, yet again, releasing 3 more US citizens. Earlier it was Wombe, who didn't survive, unfortunately. But now it's the 3 US citizens now finally clearing the way to strengthen ties between the two nations. How do you see this? We seem to be having some technical difficulties connecting with Professor there, but we'll come back to you, Harry. Well, we were talking about how he's been strengthening his foreign policy. He's often accused of dilly-dallying here and there, and you rightly mentioned he was calling Kim Jong-un a missile man, a rocket man. Somehow things have been changing for a very long time, and it's come to this now, where both the leaders are finally meeting and expectations are high.
Yeah, expectations are very high. I mean, the positive messages that we've seen from Kim Jong-un to Donald Trump are, they are as far and away as you can imagine as the sort of rhetoric we were seeing just a few months ago. And the Trump administration, they really think that these talks with North Korea can be different to previous talks. They hope that, unlike previous talks which have clearly failed because North Korea hasn't managed to acquire nuclear weapons, they think that these ones can be a success. They're trying to ensure that the region is united. The Trump administration is conducting many meetings with its counterparts in South Korea, in Japan, and in China as well. And they think if they can present this united front towards North Korea, then they can convince them, perhaps in return for lifting of sanctions, to commit to some sort of denuclearization. The Trump administration insists that they want to see total denuclearization. Of course, those details will be the sort of things that are hashed out over the months ahead, following what we expect will be a summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un at some point in the next few weeks.
But of course, expectations are high there from Donald Trump and the administration who's been pursuing this for a very long time, Harry. But from the North Korean regime, what do we know about their expectations in particular? Of course, that's difficult to speculate at this point in time, but we do have reports surfacing here and there as to what they would want to achieve out of this summit.
Well, we don't know at this stage. I mean, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has been to Pyongyang twice now to meet with Kim Jong-un. The first time was last month. He's been there this week to collect these prisoners, to obtain their release from the North Korean regime. So we suspect the US might have a good idea about what exactly North Korea wants to discuss. Will it be, for example, the removal of US troops from the Korean Peninsula? That's something that the US has been pretty reluctant to engage in for the past few years. Will it be the lifting of economic sanctions, harsh economic sanctions that the entire world really has adopted on North Korea? I suspect we'll find out more details about exactly what North Korea would like to see the US do when this summit takes place between President Trump and Kim Jong-un.
All right, Harry, thank you for joining us on the program and getting us all those details. Appreciate it.